Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Calvin Coyles here from Wild Success. I am joined by four incredible women from the areas of coaching and personal transformation. We've got Crystal Ryan from the Practice of Self. She's a personal well-being mentor. I'm also joined as well by Desiree Britton, who's a Worthy Women Wellness Initiative and a holistic transformational breakthrough coach. That's quite a mouthful in and of itself, Desiree. We've got Sarah Miller from Serendipity Coaching, who's a mindset and life coach. And then finally, we have Jen Guerrero from Vancemos. I'm pronouncing that right? Vancemos?
Venceremos.
That's, yes, those things. And she's a personal transformational guide. It is wonderful to have such beautiful feminine energy with us today on the call. And I'm really excited to learn from the four of you ladies how you went about getting started in coaching. What's been your journey and background in terms of, what was it that conspired in the universe for you to be here with me today? What's been your journey? What's been your highs and lows in this space? What inspired you to get into using your gifts and talents and tools to make the world a better place? I'm really interested to know about that. And then I'd also like to discuss as well, what's been your journey in business? There's a lot of coaches out there that have aspirations of, making this their full-time thing, or even just a really well-paid part-time thing. And I'm interested to know what's been your background and journey as part of that. Desiree, we might start with you. Tell us a little bit about how you came to be here, how you got started in this journey in terms of coaching and how you came to be where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really feel like this is actually my calling, and I'm lucky enough to have been given the support and the resources around me to really create a business from it as well. So, growing up, I was always kind of finding myself in situations where people were opening up to me really easily. I would
Yep.
often be met with like strangers on the street, even when I was walking out in nature or if I was at a restaurant. And I would find myself in these situations where people, would get chatting and they would end up telling me things and then later on say, I haven't said this to anyone before. I've never told anyone about this. And I really noticed this trend where I felt like I actually had a gift of being able to make people feel super comfortable and create this safe space where people could really feel like they could be themselves and be seen and that it would be safe and comfortable and they were listened to. And I really felt like the universe was trying to tell me something and that this was something that I should, go out and get some education around and really be able to support myself in being able to do this to the best of my ability. So I went and I studied psychology. I have a Bachelor of Psychology, and then I kind of built on that with various holistic modalities like holistic nutrition and becoming a yoga teacher. And the list just goes on. I love
Yep.
learning, so I've really taken the opportunity to continue to learn and try and be the best version of myself. And as a result, I've really been able to help other people become the best version of themselves.
Yep.
And now I find myself in a place where I'm able to sort of combine these skills and these maybe natural abilities with my education and create something that is not only helping other people, but also providing me a lot of satisfaction and fulfillment. So it's really been one of the most beautiful journeys that I've had the honor of being on.
Yeah, beautiful. Tell me a bit about what you do at the Worthy Woman Wellness Initiative. Like, what does that look like? What do you offer in terms of clients that are coming on board to work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason that it's called the Worthy Woman Wellness Initiative, it's a bit of a mouthful for sure, is because the main thing that I help my clients with is really healing their sense of self-worth.
Right.
I believe that everything that is in your physical manifestation of reality is a direct reflection of what you believe that you're worthy of having. So, whether that looks like your relationships or your business or your sense of fulfillment, this all really relates back to your sense of self worth. So, all of my programs and my offers are really built around helping women and supporting women to heal their self worth and then become the most empowered version of themselves, whether that looks like working with their nutrition and their health, or whether that looks like more so the deep work and the psychological work. It really depends on the person, and I try to make my offers as unique to my client as possible. But
Beautiful.
I really have a whole range of offers, whether that's workshops and community education experiences, or retreats, or one on one coaching or group coaching. I do offer quite a large range of services.
Beautiful, fantastic, amazing. Crystal, I'm interested to know a little bit about your journey as well and the practice of self. Talk to me about how that idea was formed and created. What's your personal practice of self, so to speak, and what work do you do with clients as a personal well-being mentor? Give us the backstory there.
I love that. You want me to go after Desiree there? Wow, okay. Yeah, this is so beautiful, Desiree. I honestly, wow, that was so beautiful. Thank you. For myself, very different to Desiree in the sense that she felt she'd had this calling her whole life.
Right.
I myself, up until about 6 months to a year ago, couldn't see myself doing anything other than studying, getting my university degree in a completely different field. And
what were you studying?
Marine biology.
Oh, wow. Okay, very different.
Very different field. And yeah, it was always like I needed to go to school, I need to go to uni, I need to get my job straight away in my field. And if I don't, then I'm not achieving the societal keys of success.
Yes.
So I finished university and there was just so much expectation and stress and pressure. I had a quarter life crisis, and then realized that I was the only one putting all this pressure and expectation on myself.
Yeah.
And went through this self-discovery journey of actually starting to do the things that light me up and actually starting to look inward and reflect and get in alignment with my values and recognize the life that I was leading was actually a result of what I perceived that would make me, accepted by people. And it really started to create some shifts, started to look into NLP study, implemented that into my life, saw dramatic shifts, and then just recognized that there was so much external focused seeking. Everyone was looking for how can they look in terms of their body image, or if I change the degree, then I'll be worthy. It was always very external. So what the beautiful Caroline and I have created with the practice of self is it's all about actually looking inward, recognizing and uncovering everything that's going on inside of you and radically accepting every inch, as opposed to suppressing and as opposed to avoiding. Because when we do that, that's when we can step into our most authentic expression.
Fuck, so I love that. I love the idea there of I think the word you used were radically accepting every inch of yourself. And that is such a radical concept, right? I was just literally having a conversation with a client this morning around, this pattern that so many people have, particularly a lot of women as well, around the need to feel validated by the world around us. And in fact, I just bought a book. I'm having a little girl, as you guys know, around raising girls to like themselves. And I think that the word is in a world that tells them they're flawed. And I think that is such a radical concept. It shouldn't be, but it is such a radical concept as part of that. Let me dive in, and I don't normally do this at this part of the conversation, but I'm interested in it. What are some of the techniques that people can embrace in the work that you teach to help us radically accept every inch of ourselves? Like, what does that process look like? Give me a tool or a strategy or an idea.
Beautiful. So it's actually week 1 of our aligned 8-week online experience that we uncovered this. But
cheeky plug, I love that.
But essentially, we can't be on a growth journey. We can't be on a learning journey until we actually uncover all our power that has been put with all the blame and all the past occurrences. It's all past focus. So in order to actually take that step forward into that practice of self, we really want to actually uncover every rock. We want to go into that little box that we've buried deep and we've chucked clothes all on top of it so no one can look at it. We can't look at it ever. And we want to actually uncover that box. We want to feel those emotions. We want to listen to why it was there. And this is all such a beautiful process, and it's scary, and it's really terrifying. And the process of us doing this is through forgiveness. So forgiveness is the most beautiful access way in order to really live a transformational life. So a tool and something that we go over in our first week is actually that forgiveness process. So a tool that your listeners can go away with is actually writing a forgiveness letter to yourself. Literally uncovering all those rocks in yourself and those buried hurts and those buried treasures, because they're exactly why you're here and why you're who you are right now.
Sensational, sensational. Jen, let's check in with you. Tell me a bit about your backstory and how you came to be a personal transformation guide. And in the words and the language of coaching, there's a lot of beautiful richness to the language that you use, not just from a cultural perspective, but even just the name of your business as well. Venceremos means, we were discussing this just before we jumped on the call. It means the invitation to connect, but it also means to conquer and to pursue your goals. So I'm interested to explore that and the significance of that metaphor in your coaching, but I'm also interested to know as well why you label yourself as a guide as opposed to a coach, for example, because there's a lot of different words that we would use there. So tell me a bit about your backstory and how you came to be here as well, and what's been your journey through this process.
Yeah, thank you. And I love following after Crystal because one of the terms that I use in my work also is radical self-acceptance. And so I guess to start with me, I mean, the Venceremos and the name and everything, it does come from my own story. I personally kind of fell into the world of personal development and personal transformation because as a child, I was born to two juvenile delinquent parents who were addicts. And so you can only imagine the life that I've lived. You can only imagine the things that I've seen and the trauma that lived in my body for so long. Yes. And it was somewhere around my early 20s. I was like, you know what? I deserve more. I need more. And I started to go down many different paths to find healing. And what I ended up coming to were things like meditation, breath work, NLP, all of these holistic natural modalities that really gave me the opportunity to break through and transform. I changed my life, right? I went from the shadows into the light. And so if I can do it, then anyone can. And so it would be rather selfish of me, I believe, if I continue my life living abundantly, living connected, aligned, and in my fullness without sharing that with other women, because
I love that.
They're out there. And my clients that I work with, I mean, not everybody has intense trauma, but trauma is still trauma, no matter how taboo it may seem or how intense it may seem. It still registers the same for each person. And so, it's my duty in life. If I can do it, then they can do it. And why would I not share it? Yeah. And so the name Venceremos comes from a play. It is an invitation to just come and be. And it is also an invitation to conquer. And the tagline is, in light and shadow, we will conquer, but also in light and shadow, we will be. So it's a place of just being an acceptance of, like, we have the shadow, but we also have the light. And through my work and through the courses that I offer, what I teach women to do is to take the light into the shadow, but also learn how to be in the shadow without judgment, without shame.
There's a poem, I'm sure you've read it before. I forget who wrote it, but it's called The Invitation. And one of the lines, I'm probably going to butcher it, but one of the lines in that is, I don't care what you do for a living. I care whether you can sit in the fire of your own truth and not shrink away from that. And I think there's so much that people have in their lives that distract them from being able to sit and do that inner work and sort of blending, as Jung would say, the shadow self. I think it's so beautiful what you're talking about that. And there's a duality to that energy of one, the conquering and the energy that requires to do that and to step up, but also at the same time as well, sometimes that can be easier than to sit and to sort of hold space for the other parts of ourselves as well that might be a little bit more difficult to deal with. I think it's a fantastic paradigm and juxtaposition in that metaphor.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Excellent. Last but certainly not least, Serendipity Coaching. I love the name. I told you when I first heard it, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Tell me a little bit about how this all came to be, Sarah, and what the journey's been like for you. We've known each other for some time now, and I just love your content. I love what you put out there in the marketplace as well. I think it comes from such a pure and wholesome place. So I'm really interested to know a bit more about your journey and background and the type of clients that you work with and how you came to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So my journey has been quite a long one, a little bit of a roller coaster. So similar to Desiree, I always loved having deep and meaningful conversations, always wanting to help people out, really sort of unpack things, really offer some guiding advice. It always just came very naturally for me. I did study psychology for a bit later in high school and also at the start of uni. But then I actually moved into communications and ended up in radio. So I was a radio announcer for about 7 years, moving all around Australia, also working very closely in the music industry. So I've always considered myself to be a really good communicator. And I guess that sort of ties into my coaching style as well. That's really given me the confidence to be able to actually communicate with people, but then also that passion for wanting to go deeper and really understand and learn more about people and just to be able to help them on their journey. So all of that's tied in really nicely to be now a coach. And I never really considered coaching as, I guess, a realm for me. It didn't really cross my path until I actually reconnected with an old friend who was working as a coach. And I sort of started, thinking away, all these little light bulb moments going off. And I realized, okay, maybe this seems like the natural progression for me. Because I was actually at a huge crossroads in my career at the time. In radio, it just wasn't aligning anymore. I sort of felt like I was living a little bit of a double life. So outside of work, I was so interested in all of this healing and holistic wellness. And then at work, I was, music industry, party, and it just wasn't aligning. So I really had to sort of take a step back and go, okay, well, what is my purpose? What does feel right for me? But I would say the most pivotal moment for me in my journey was at the age of 18, and I didn't realize it at the time, and I didn't realize it until maybe recent years. And that's when I was actually diagnosed with a chronic condition of type 1 diabetes. So I had lived my whole life up until the age of 18, being completely healthy, taking my body for granted. I was 18 years old. All I wanted to do was go out and party with my friends and just be super social, start uni. But then being diagnosed with a chronic condition really it was such a shock. It was completely out of the blue. I didn't see it coming. And also, I didn't feel like I had the support or the guidance or the education or the knowledge that really could have helped me on my journey. And so for a good 5 years there, it just sparked a plethora of limiting beliefs, emotions, fear, anxiety, anger that I was just suppressing. I wasn't aware of it at the time. And that went on for a good 5 years. And it wasn't until I actually started working with a healer and a coach myself that things started to shift for me. And I started implementing the mindfulness practices. I started going within and rewriting some of those limiting beliefs of my own around having a chronic condition. And that's when everything just started to shift. And that's when I wanted to treat my body better and actually fill it with nourishing foods and move it in a way that was going to improve my chronic condition. And sure enough, I started to see the physical results. And so that's when I realized that there is such a connection between the mindset and the mindfulness element in relation to our physical health. And so that's when I started to realize, okay, if this is working for me, I am a lived experience. I need to share this with other diabetics, people with autoimmune, people with chronic conditions, and help them on their own journey, because I just don't believe they have access to that kind of support and guidance in the Western medicine realm. I'm not discounting it. There's definitely a time and place for it, but I've definitely noticed that there is such a huge link between trauma, inflammation. Inflammation then leads to dis-ease in the physical body. And so that is a huge focus of mine now, is working with my clients one-on-one and also in my 6-week group coaching program to be able to, get rid of some of those limiting beliefs, help them implement those mindfulness practices, teach them how to actually process and work through their emotions rather than suppress them, which is just leading to more inflammation and disease. And just to be able to, help them on their mindfulness journey, which will then have a flow-on effect to their physical health and their chronic condition.
Yeah, wow. Fantastic. I love all of that. I think it's so wonderful that, there's an awakening of people to not just the mind-body connection, but also the importance of living a holistic life in every facet of that. What is always fascinating to me is, as a young person, I didn't really know what coaching was, but after probably about 16, 17, I realized, there's these people out there that have a whole life dedicated to helping other people, and they might do speaking or training or seminars or whatever. So for me, I always knew that was available to me, but it's staggering how many people don't know
Bless you.
Sorry, just releasing some limiting beliefs. It's staggering to me about how many people don't know that coaching is an actual field. And I guess for a lot of people, unless you came from a competitive sporting background, like that's where coaching exists. Or you have a coach at sport. Or maybe if you're in an elite business, you might have a workplace coach, which really might be in some ways just a HR manager, or in other ways you might have executive coaches. But for most people that are in that early stages of development in their lives, unless there's a real problem, they don't even know that there's a market out there called coaching, that people can actually make money doing that work. So it's always fascinating to me how people end up going down that pathway. I think probably the more common example would be people move into becoming therapists or counselors or psychologists, psychotherapists, right? That's the more traditional angle as opposed to coaching. But I'm inspired by all four of you and the stories of how you've used your experiences of life, whether that be traumatic or just the lived experience, to then make a difference in other people's lives. Crystal, I'd love to check in with you. Tell me, what are some of the problems and challenges that you see that are often repeated in clients that, it's the idea that, awareness precedes change. So what are some of the awarenesses that clients are lacking that if they just understood this, if they just got this principle, that would allow them to take their lives to the next level?
I love this question so much. And I think there's, for myself, two things that really, really stand out. One is the language that we're using. Having conscious awareness of the language that we're using can literally allow us to shift our whole perspective and shift and change our whole lives. Making the subtlest shifts in the way that we are speaking to ourselves and what we're speaking into existence and putting out into the universe can create such huge shifts. So changing things literally from I have to I get to, or looking at things as if we've already achieved them and associating that feeling and associating that heart coherence with already achieving this result is just such an access point to a transformational life. And then the other one that really stood out is one's belief in self. Similar to what Desiree was saying with the worth that we believe that we have, really, really coming back to the actual belief that we have in ourselves. And, we can set goals and we can try to achieve them, but if we don't actually look inward and reassess the beliefs and the lens in which we're perceiving our world, and our RAS, our reticular activating system, is filtering all the information and bringing to our conscious awareness, then how do we expect to actually achieve anything that we're setting ourselves out to do?
Fuck, that's outstanding. I love those principles. Jen, same question for you. What are some of the common problems and challenges that you see clients dealing with? And maybe obviously in your experience, you work with people that have had perhaps some trauma in their lives as well. What are some of the things that you see that people struggle with in moving through that process of their lives? Oh, you're muted, babe.
These Zoom calls. These mute buttons. I think for what I work with mostly with my client, I mean, it's interesting how, it's so universal, especially working with women and this whole concept of how we're kind of programmed to think that we're not quite good enough, right? So I think what I most commonly see across the board is trying to fit into a box and then not feeling quite right in that box. And then also, I think that the greatest limitation really is the mind and the belief systems we fall into. And so it's all about the conditioning and then unconditioning to recondition.
Yeah. In terms of the mindset that you work with for a lot of clients, obviously you mentioned that idea of unworthiness or not feeling good enough as well. What's a tool or an idea or a principle or even just a quote, for example, that you find that can often help clients make that subtle shift and take them in a different direction?
Yeah, I love that question because it's so, each one is kind of have to prescribe for each one. I think that the most powerful tool I offer my clients is breath work. We do a lot of profound and transformational breath work. And what the breath work offers you is it cleans the weather off the horizon, so to speak. So you can see beyond the false beliefs, you can see beyond the limitations, and you're able to actually, but not only mentally, but you're able to actually process and clear it physically in the body and energetically as well.
Wow, I love that. That was not what I was expecting as an answer, but that's great. Excellent. Sarah, for you, what are some of the problems and challenges that you see clients that you're dealing with work through? What are some of the friction points that it's like hitting your head against a rock at times with people? What are some of those common patterns and belief systems?
Yeah, sure. So I would say probably the number one is limiting beliefs.
Yep.
So particularly with my chronic condition clients, when you're diagnosed with a chronic condition and you're told that you are going to have an autoimmune condition for the rest of your life,
Yeah.
and especially a condition that could lead to said complication, said problem, said outcome, what are you going to believe when that's reinforced over and over again and conditioned, especially my clients who were diagnosed as children? They have been told this over and over again. And so, of course, over time, they're going to believe that that is their fate. And I think the media has a lot to answer for in that realm as well. And that's something I'm really trying to, I guess, reframe in terms of like the content that I put out there, because I want to show people that even if you do have a chronic condition or an autoimmune condition, you can still do absolutely anything that you want to do. So definitely limiting beliefs. There's a lot of limiting beliefs to rewire there. And I'm a huge fan of the NLP technique, belief changes. Also parts integration. I bring in a lot of anchoring to really I actually just had a client this morning and we did an anchoring session around self-worth. So of course, again, when you have a chronic condition, you sort of this idea of being broken or unworthy of being healthy, or unworthy of being loved sort of starts to creep in. And so I do a lot of work around self-worth, self-love, and also emotions, right? So there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of bitterness and anger and frustration that arises every day from having a chronic condition, because there's no day off, right? If you have a chronic condition, you don't get holidays off, you don't get your birthday off. It's every single day, and it's so draining and taxing. So I would say limiting beliefs, working with self-worth, and I guess just learning how to process some of our emotions and just really detach from them, right? Creating space between the action and the reaction. Because I mean, I know for me on my own journey, when I used to see high blood sugars, I would react. Do you know what I mean? And I'd become anxious, and then I'd become fearful about what that could mean for my long-term health and wellness. And so I really try to teach my clients how to detach from that and just become aware, acknowledge, and then we can reflect later on.
Yeah, 100%. I remember it's not a chronic condition, but I remember my little brother was going through some difficult times, and we're trying to find, not what's wrong, but effectively to sort of diagnose what was going on. And for a long time, a lot of the medical experts we were speaking to, believed that Nicholas had autism. He was on the spectrum. So you then go down an entire rabbit hole full of labels and medications and reasonings and all this sort of stuff. And it was very important for me at that time as well to make sure that he never heard that word. Like, that was just not something that we're going to label. He has gifts and talents. He processes things differently, but labels that attach a whole heap of different things for people. But what was even crazier about it was not just that we started going down this pathway and that it's so easy for people to sort of get stamped growing up with these different things, but we then go and speak to a different specialist who's a fetal alcohol syndrome specialist, and says actually a lot of kids that deal with fetal alcohol syndrome present as autistic, but they're not autistic. And this would be the test for that. And turns out he doesn't actually have autism. He's suffered or experienced a trauma in the womb through fetal alcohol. And so obviously we don't know any of this because, we've fostered Nicholas, but it's a really interesting process to go through and understand the importance that labels play for people, and the significance that then can go from being a label to being a belief to becoming my identity, and that becomes so difficult to shift and change. And ultimately, it also could tremendously serve us to take our lives to another level, or be able to create a powerful meaning to go, hey, I'm going to do this despite of these conditions. The reality is that's a needle in the haystack. For most people, it becomes then a crutch that keeps holding them back in their lives, and in many cases is an easy excuse as well to justify not going after what you want in life as well. I think it's really significant, the work that you're doing, which is great. Desiree, for you, talk to us a little bit about the stuff that you experience with clients, because obviously you work across the spectrum in the space of wellness, right? So it's not just the nutrition, but it's the mindset, the mind-body connection as well. Talk to me about some of the challenges that clients present in a wellness environment from being able to achieve their goals. Like, if they could wave a magic wand, what were some of the things that they'd want to get rid of?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really great question. And it's so interesting. The mind body connection is really something that I specialize in, and I work specifically with a lot of female entrepreneurs.
Okay.
So, a lot of my clients are looking to build businesses or grow in their businesses, or even just find out what their purpose is and really create a career out of it. So, it's interesting. A lot of the work I do is actually really around people's conditioning, specifically their subconscious conditioning. We actually end up doing a lot of work around people's past. And I think the reason for this is because between the time that a baby is in utero and the age of 8, that is when the subconscious mind is developing. And that's when a lot of ideas around a person's self-worth are being developed. And so many people don't have that understanding. And so as they move through life, they have these subconscious beliefs about who they are, what they are worthy of having, what they're deserving of having. And then the world kind of reflects that back to them, right? And these beliefs get more deeply ingrained into their sense of self. And this can be so damaging because in psychology, there's a theory called the looking glass self theory, which basically says that we learn about who we are based on the way that other people treat us. And so if you are starting out your life with these limiting belief systems, whether it be through trauma, big T or little t trauma, the way that you experience life as a child then continues to amplify and be magnified through these experiences that we create from the subconscious mind. So for me, a big thing that I focus on with my clients is really going back into that subconscious awareness through the techniques of NLP and really identifying what is the root thing that happened to you in your life, or the root belief that is truly getting in the way of the person that you want to be, the life that you want to create, this sense of purpose that you're seeking. And we go in and we reprogram that. We remove the emotional charge around some of these experiences, and then we anchor in new, really empowering beliefs so that they can start to see a shift, not only in the way that they feel on a daily basis, right? Because vibration precedes manifestation. So when we want to manifest something, we really need to feel into that first and raise our vibration. So we go in and we don't not only change the way that a person feels, but also start to change then what they're experiencing in their life as a result.
I love that. Vibration precedes manifestation. I'm writing that one down. I like that.
Amazing.
Wonderful.
Love that.
Wonderful. Just some outstanding your insights from all four of you. This call's been remarkable in so many different ways. I honor all of you for being on this journey and for just doing the work that you do. It's obvious to me, being able to have a deeper conversation with you all than we normally get to have. And normally it's me talking and you're listening. It's nice to be the other way around for a change, but it is wonderful to see just how many gifts and talents that you guys are owning and cultivating on a daily basis. With the time that we've got left, I want to learn a little bit about some of the wins and losses that you had in business and how you all came to be effectively running a coaching business as opposed to being coaches. A lot of people out there that do coaching, it's pro bono, it's family and friends. Getting paid to be a coach is a whole different beast. So, Crystal, we might start with you. Tell us a little bit about your backstory in making this move to now getting paid as a coach. What was some of the lessons you learned in getting your first couple of clients on board? And if you could, what would be some recommendations for someone just starting their coaching journey?
Amazing. Thank you. In terms of getting into your authentic expression for coaching, definitely for me, it was getting clear on who I actually wanted to serve and who I wanted to help. Yes. Because often I can feel, and I'm sure you ladies can appreciate, when you feel so passionate and so excited to serve and so excited to help and share all this knowledge that you've got, but it isn't until you actually start to put yourself out there and actually start to have clients come to you that you realize what you're here for and who you're here to serve. It wasn't until I actually started to put myself out there that I was getting the same people come to me with same issues, which very, very funnily reflected me 6 months or a year ago.
What a crazy coincidence.
Oh, who would know?
Yeah.
And it was just so beautiful because you can share and you can relate because you've had those same past experiences. There's no resistance, there's no blockage. For me as well, definitely releasing the how, really living into that law of attraction manifestation, as opposed to trying to be so structured. I would find myself jumping onto the call in my head, okay, it's going to go exactly like this. I'm going to do this tool. And as I was having the one-on-one, I would then realize it became this fluid, beautiful flow, and it just channeled and it just flowed. And that's what it is all about. So for me, my biggest tip and my biggest takeaway is to just stand in your most authentic expression. Just be your purest, most beautiful self, especially when it comes to marketing yourself and popping yourself on social media, putting face to the brand, getting up and doing talking stories and getting up and really like showing up as your weird and wacko self, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Yeah, I love that. There's a lot of people though, Crystal, that struggle with the idea of being their authentic selves for all the reasons we just looked at, right? Around worthiness. And so what ends up happening for a lot of people is that, I don't want to be salesy, right? Or I don't want to come across in that way. But in many cases, I think they need to come across in that way because that's how they've seen people make money before. And also they're fucking terrified of the idea of being themselves, because then, and this will happen for everybody, I'm sure it's happened for all of you as well, is you're going to be criticized. There's going to be people that just abuse the shit out of you for no other reason than they're just negative motherfuckers. So, that's a double-edged sword, right? We know that by being our authentic selves, we're going to more deeply connect. We're going to be able to resonate and attract those people to us. But that also means being tremendously vulnerable. And for a lot of people, they're not willing to be vulnerable with themselves or their intimate partner, never mind the whole world. So Crystal, for you, and I'm interested to know from all four of you actually about this as well, what was the switch for you that said it was okay for me to do this? Like, what was the point where you said, actually, I'm gonna just be myself openly, and I'm going to open myself to criticism, but I also hope I get a heap of love and clients from that process as well?
Definitely attaching a why, attaching the reason why you're doing it, so that any obstacle that comes up, any hate message, any client that doesn't pay you and ends the call halfway through you doing your belief change, you can always come back to, okay, maybe this one didn't work. Maybe this isn't meant to be this time, but I know my why. I know why I'm here. And that way, no matter what obstacle, you can just keep coming back down to yourself.
Fuck, great. Love it. Jen, for you, tell us a bit about you starting your business and starting to monetize the gifts and talents and passions and the life experience that the lived experience you've been through. Talk to us about the monetization journey about that and starting your business. Muted, babe. We'll get there again.
For me, it came in. It's the blessing of the pandemic pivot for me. I lived in New York City, ran a huge company, 200 employees, 2,400 clients under it was a whole thing. And I've always had really high level jobs and in my career.
The yoga center, right? You were running yoga centers, yeah?
Yeah, I ran 5 yoga centers here in New York City.
Wow.
It was tiny little operation, little yoga studio, mom and pop thing. And pandemic pivot, it all shut down and went bankrupt. And I turned around and I was like, all right, so, here I am, like, I'm coaching 200 some young women who are trying to do their thing. Why am I not doing this for myself? Why am I not making myself 7 figures? And why am I not doing it in a way that is authentic and true to me? A lot of my work in the corporate system was dismantling the hierarchy and dismantling a lot of the corporate trauma that goes on. So I was like, why am I just not doing it for me?
Yeah.
And so it made total sense. So I came into that, 2020 pandemic pivot. Gotta love it. Give me another one. Give me another one.
I love it. Nice.
And yeah. And then the other question, I'm sorry.
No, it's just around, getting your first couple of clients. What did you find worked for you, and what would you recommend for somebody that's got a talent and a passion, is ready to start doing it for themselves, but obviously needs to put money in the bank, right? So how do I go about getting those first couple of clients? What tools or tactics or strategies did you utilize to get your first couple of clients?
I think I just asked people. If one of the lessons that I taught in sales with my employees was, you lose 100% of the sales you don't ask for.
Yes.
So, well, I'm going to lose a lot of sales if I don't open my mouth, right?
Yeah.
So I just asked people. I was like, I'm doing this thing. I think you would be great. Would you like to do it? And no one said no. Which says a lot for my work, says a lot for what I've done and what people have seen. But I think that really what it speaks to is just the courage to be vulnerable, to say, hey, I'm doing this thing.
Yeah.
And I think that the vulnerability, it speaks to people.
Yeah, 100%. And just so everyone knows as well, Jen's not just randomly walking up to strangers on the street and asking them. You're working your networks, and you've got 100-person list strategy, and you've got the referrals and joint ventures. Like there's a bigger play than that. But
yeah,
in simplicity, you are just literally asking people.
Yeah, it is. I do a lot of like audience leveraging, because I know so many people in the yoga world, the wellness industry. It's like, hey, I've got a thing. Can we do an IG live? And then, I'll give them a 20% discount. And so it's a lot of organic marketing, a lot of audience leveraging, for sure.
And if that doesn't work and you're listening at home, then just start asking people on the street and you'll see what happens. Sarah, for you, what about for yourself, transitioning from the world of corporate radio? Obviously, it's a huge business that has some very clear structures, and it's a very easy product to sell because the market's already there. Talk to me about the difference between being in that world to then doing your own coaching business, and how you get your first couple of clients, and what does that process look like?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to throw this out there. Risk it all. Because if you truly believe that you can make a difference in people's life, if you truly understand and resonate with your why, big fan of the why as well, shout out to Crystal. If you truly believe that, then you have to risk it all and trust that it's going to work out. And that's exactly what I did at the end of last year. I was receiving all this feedback. My conscious logical brain was trying to step in and, say, do you really want to leave your full-time income? Do you really want to leave Sydney? Do you really want to leave all of your friends and a relationship and everything? And while it may not have made any logical sense, there was just, my intuition was just saying, go, just leave, quit your job, move home to Perth, even if it means, living with my parents for a little bit, while I get my business really off the ground and thriving, and just risk it all. And that's exactly what I did at the end of last year. And it was the best thing I ever did. And of course, there's going to be those moments that pop up where you do have the self-doubt, especially if maybe you've been turned down by a client, but which is why what you're practicing becomes so important for you to practice yourself as well, because you are going to have limiting beliefs that pop up. So be prepared for that, and just trust that you have the tools to be able to work through them, and your people will come to you. I really believe there is enough space for every coach out there.
Yes.
There is enough people that need your help and your expertise and your skills. And one of the biggest hurdles I had to overcome was, okay, well, I'm not a diabetes coach. Who am I to help diabetics and people with autoimmune? And someone said to me, one of my own coaches, she said, Sarah, you're a lived experience. You know better than anyone. Do you know what I mean? You're living with this thing every single day. So that, and at first when I started coaching, I really just wanted to help everybody. And that's what I put out there. But I just naturally attracted diabetics and people with autoimmune conditions. And so that's then led me to creating my 6-week group coaching program, which is called I Am More Than My Chronic Condition, and really narrowing in on that target audience and that niche. And yeah, the signs will be there. It will present itself to you organically. So just trust, take a risk, and look after yourself in the process.
And just to build on what Sarah's saying there as well, we get asked this question all the time, like, I want to leave my job. Should I leave my job and all that stuff as well? I think there's a time to burn the boats, so to speak, and there's a time not to. And I think the way that I've reconciled that in my mind when I've looked at people, when I've worked with different clients over the years, is there's a moment for most of us, and the four of you ladies have certainly had this moment already. It's self-evident, is the I can do this moment. And it's the moment where you actually do it for the first time. You do your coaching session, you get a client, something happens, and you go, fuck, I actually can do this. And it's not a foreign concept or an abstract idea anymore. It's something that is, as you just mentioned, a new lived experience. And it's like, I can make a difference here. And as soon as that switches on for you at that moment, for me, it's no matter what the economic reality looks like, you go all in on it, because that's the moment where the universe is saying to you, hey, we validated this idea. So often, when you're finally attuned to your vibration or source or spirit or God, whatever energy you want to refer to it as, when you start doing things, you receive the insight back almost immediately, right? Like for me, anytime I do something that's out of alignment, and I'm expecting it to go well and I don't get anything back, I'm going, fuck, okay, well, that was interesting, because I thought that I would get that validated straight away. And there's other times when I know I'm in flow with something, I'll do it, and then things happen straight away. So I think for those people that are out there in that place, if you've had that moment where you go, I can do this, I'm confident in myself, my abilities to keep doing more of this, then go all chips in on that, because that's the moment then the whole world and the universe sort of conspires for your greatness and your success, which I think is wonderful. Desiree, for you, what's been your background and experience in the wellness environment, getting your business up off the ground? What's some of the wisdom or insight you would give to people that want to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really interesting what we were talking about before, how most people don't even know that coaching is an industry. I
Yes.
was very much the same up until I moved to Australia. So I grew up in Canada, and I feel like where I grew up, specifically in the community I was in, going to university and prioritizing high levels of education was really deeply ingrained in me. And so I sort of thought for a long time, if I wanted to do anything in the world of psychology and helping people on that really intimate level, that I had to at least get a PhD, which is so funny because in hindsight, I laugh at that, right? I've been exposed to so many people who have had different types of experiences and use their lived experiences and whatnot to create something really profound. So that's definitely changed. But I think for me, I had to go through a really deep unlearning. So it really was this sense of, how can I use what I already have to create something beautiful? Instead of thinking that I needed to be somewhere far off in the distance in the future before I could actually make a difference in the world. So when I moved to Australia, it really was this experience of really losing everything in a sense. I lost all my sense of stability, my sense of support and safety at home, and sold my car. I left everything that was sort of seen through the lens of society as stable and external success to come here and follow my heart. And when I did that, I went through some really deep personal learnings and lessons, and I was exposed to the world of coaching. And I think that through that, I was able to see that I could actually combine all of my previous education to do something meaningful. And there was a lot of imposter syndrome that I had to work through. We talk about our conditioning, and I clearly had a lot of conditioning around what you needed, the prerequisites to actually make a difference in someone's life. So I had a lot of unlearning to do and a lot of imposter syndrome to conquer, and that was definitely my biggest hurdle by far. I think that any advice that I'd give to somebody who's going through that right now is really just to connect deeper to their why, really lean into what it is that's calling you to do this in the first place. I'm a really big believer that, I am quite spiritual, and I'm a really big believer that the universe never puts something on your heart. Source never gives you a calling or a desire or a drive or an impulse to do something if you're not supposed to be doing it, if you don't already have the resources within you to bring that to reality. So I think that really just connecting deep to yourself and leaning into that and getting really clear and honest with yourself about why you want to do it, and if it's rooted in integrity, knowing that you probably already have all the resources within you, and if not, you will be presented with the resources very soon to bring this to fruition.
Wow. Fuck, preach. All four of you. Crystal's just been a fangirl in the corner every time someone speaks. I love it. I love it. I think we could easily continue this conversation all day, but I know that you guys have got lives to change, and I've got to pretend to look busy here in the office. So we'll wrap it here. But I just want to honor all four of you. We don't necessarily plan to have four people just jump on the call in the way that we do, right? It was, it's very random how the team pulled all this together, and I just show up and have these interviews. But I think it was remarkable to have you four women specifically on this call, and I think the energy and the dynamic and just the unity across four completely different life experiences, four different niches and business models and ideas. The unity is it's very serendipitous, for want of a better choice of words. So we'll ride on that. So thank you all so much for your time, energy, and effort. Crystal, if we want to find out a bit more about you and connect with you online, how do we go about doing that?
Amazing. So I am best contact via Instagram. So we are the practice of .self.
The practice of .self. Just slide into the DMs. We'll put a link in the description of the bio. Desiree, for you, how can we connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a website. It's www.desireemichelle.net. And then I also have an Instagram page, Worthy Woman Wellness Initiative.
Excellent. Good luck spelling all of that out. Nice. Jen, for you?
Unmute first.
Oh, we got that. Yes.
Yes, last one. I have my website is www.venceremos.com. It's VENSEREMOS for the non-Spanish speakers, or also Venceremos NYC on Instagram.
Excellent, sensational. And last but not least, Sarah.
So best place to find me would be on Instagram at Serendipity Coaching. So SARANDIPITY. Honestly, I'm so used to saying that now. So beautiful. Best place would be Instagram, and website is in the works.
Yep, excellent, sensational. We'll put all the links in the bios and all that sort of stuff in there as well, so you can connect in with these lovely ladies. Ladies, again, thank you so much for your time. We deeply appreciate it. If you're listening at home, please reach out and connect in with the girls. I'm sure there'll be some fantastic wisdom for you in your own journeys. If there's anything that we can do at Wild to help you guys grow a successful business, please let us know. And until we see you live or online, be bold, have fun, go make an impact in the world, and we'll see you on the Wild side. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.